They say Trump was humiliated. That's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for one race. You know, we've endorsed Dr. Oz. We've endorsed JP, right? JD Mandel, and he's doing great. They're all doing good. They're all doing good. And let's see what happens. But if I lose one race, we have so many races that we're leading by a lot. If it's like 40-2 or 40-1 or 40-3, they're going to say Trump was humiliated. He was humiliated.
Okay, just so we're clear, Trump did not endorse J.D. Mandel because that person doesn't exist. What Trump did was mash together two different people, J.D. Vance and Josh Mandel, who were running against each other in the Ohio Senate primary, only one of whom Trump endorsed, although you apparently wouldn't know it by listening to Trump. Now, Trump did endorse J.D. Vance, an endorsement he clearly poured over and took very seriously, and the way you can tell is because he doesn't have even the slightest clue what the guy's name is. But you know what they say, only the best people, which I guess depends on whether those people actually exist. And the craziest part is that the entire Ohio Senate primary has been a months-long slog where all of the candidates, including Vance and Mandel, have desperately vied for Trump supporters and repeated all of Trump's top hits, and even sought to mimic Trump himself. It really was as overt a panderfest to Donald Trump as was humanly possible, all for that coveted Trump endorsement, which ended up like this. Trump, live on stage, having forgotten who the hell he endorsed in the first place. I've seen some pretty pathetic stuff, but this really does deserve a cake or something. I mean, at this point, who even is J.D. Vance if he just lost the appearance of being the Trump heir that he was banking on? The guy has no values or platform, he just parroted Trump-sounding stuff and pretended to despise the quote-unquote elites, despite the fact that he is a venture capitalist who went to Yale. Sound familiar? Like another billionaire who went to Penn, for example? These people aren't in the least bit authentic, but they've figured out the formula to manipulate their base into thinking that they're gonna protect them from the out-of-touch, dangerous elites. The problem is, that is exactly who they are. Now, I should note that one possible explanation for Trump mashing Vance and Mandel together is so that he could eventually take credit for the endorsement when one of them ultimately wins the primary. Because, let's face it, Trump doesn't actually care about the candidate. Trump's only concern is his endorsement record. He just doesn't want the blemish of a losing endorsement attached to his name, so who knows, maybe he'll start just endorsing everyone so that he can guarantee himself a victory. And why not start by just combining all of the Ohio Senate candidates into one person? And granted, I know that's ridiculous, but you know what? So was trying to change the trajectory of a hurricane with a Sharpie. But here's what's so funny about this moment in particular. Only minutes earlier, Trump delves into the usual story about his heroic completion of the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, a test designed to detect cognitive impairment or dementia.
We have to announce it. I said, how tough is this test, Ronnie? Because these people are calling me bad names. They calling me stupid. They're stupid, Ronnie, and we got to end this bullshit. So I said, how long and how tough is the test? They said, well, the first questions are easy, but when you get to the middle of the test, they're very hard.
Now let's just put aside for a moment that we hear this story every single time this guy's got a mic because apparently he thinks it's some great feat of humanity that he was able to identify a rhinoceros on a test that tells you if you have dementia. Let's put that aside. What is more striking is that he just got done bragging about how big his brain is and how he finished his big boy test all by himself, got a really good grade, and all of the nice doctors told him how smart he was, and then 5 minutes later, the guy can't remember the first or last name of the candidate he endorsed in the state he just left a few days earlier. I know the left doesn't like to give Trump credit for being funny, but I'll tell you what, Trump's doing his best here to prove what a joke he actually is. Consider too, Trump and the right have spent God knows how many hours desperately peddling this idea that Biden is this dementia-addled old man who can't remember what day of the week it is. Meanwhile, Biden is overseeing the fastest economic recovery in US history, and it's Trump who can't string a sentence together. It's Trump who can't remember the only candidate who really matters ahead of Tuesday's primary election in Ohio. Because if not for projection, what would the GOP have? Anyway, I know this isn't a particularly important moment in the grand scheme of politics, But sometimes it helps to be reminded that the deity on the right is not so much the superhuman genius he fashions himself to be. Instead, he's actually the exact thing he casts Biden as, a confused joke of a politician who has little to no grasp of pretty simple concepts. But hey, maybe if he keeps bragging about that dementia test, none of us will notice. To see more videos like this, click the subscribe button right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work, subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. I cover the most important stories each week, and my guest is always one of the top political figures, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Nancy Pelosi, Katie Porter, Cory Booker, and so many more. The podcast link is also right here on this screen, so give it a listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.